Okay, so hi everyone. Back to the second section. Research goes hand in hand with contextual studies because you can see we've got history, we've got social stuff, political, economic, environmental. So we need to know about all those things if we're going to use them in our practice as to influence it. So that is why we research. Okay, so let's just have a look. So what is research? The systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. Formalized curiosity, poking and prying with a purpose. The process of discovering new knowledge, yeah. Having fun, finding out and thinking about something you're interested in. I like that bottom one. I think it's really important that it's that. Yeah, having fun, finding out and thinking about something you are really interested in. Why do we do it? Okay, so helps you reach exciting and thoughtful conclusions, leads to new knowledge, stimulates the mind. Yeah, helps you get better grades. So that's always the case for students. So, where's your research? Oh, there it is. Okay, I think more importantly though, it needs to complement and affect your practice. It can't be standalone. Okay, could help lead to a more original solution, and I think that's really important. The best creativity is almost nearly always supported by in-depth research. And again, it's one of those things that kind of go without saying sometimes. Where's your research? Well, I haven't got any, but actually, since the age of 13, I've been interested in, I don't know, the environment, and I've been following it in the news and I've been reading about it. And actually, it's not something I've just done in the last week. It's something that has built up in my life and is in my head. So it's like a backlog of research which hasn't been formalized so much, but it's something I've always been interested in and it's in there. So yeah, that can be the case. Sometimes it's not just something we just do for a thing. Good practice in research. Okay, enjoyably searching for new knowledge, keeping an open mind. I think that's so possible, and important that we don't just assume we're going to look at this book and read this chapter and that's going to be it, or look at this blog or website or whatever. We need to be able to go off and follow interesting tangents. A broad range of sources. So again, this is important. I've got nothing against Wikipedia. I use it all the time, but whenever we see a bibliography or a student just use Wikipedia all the time, it can be fine. Of course it can, but that's not broad. Yeah, that's very limited. Reflecting on and integrating findings in your practice, stepping outside your comfort zone, which I said, just look for some interesting things. Recording in an academic way. Again, this is a bit above and beyond, I guess. I'm not sure what you're instructed to do on your particular course, to be honest. But certainly when you write academic essays at a higher level and stuff, you will need to record the sources in an academic way. But yeah. Bad, staying with your current sphere. Yeah, researching only the genre and discipline. Again, this is important. Okay, I'm doing a fashion piece. I'm making a fashion piece around the environment. Okay, so you need to look at how are fine artists dealing with the environment. What films have there been made? What television programs? Yeah, so that's that kind of thing. Don't ask how many artists you should research. Never do that. It's not. It could be one. Sometimes it could just be one. And you're really in depth and it's really exciting, and that's all you do. Sometimes it can be like 50. Not capturing your thoughts isn't a good idea. So you need to have some note-taking sort of thing going on, surely. Falling into the trap of doing large volumes of vacuous research when it may be better to integrate key ideas from key sources. Yeah. So key trusted sources, a few of them is much better than tons and tons of vacuous stuff. It's just got to be useful, hasn't it? And fun, So let's have a look. I've got a couple of case studies. So this is Shona Heath, the set designer. And we'll see that her surrealism is a big thing for her. That's all her research seems to be around that. So here she is, piece of her work. So she's a set designer and an art director. So she works with Tim Walker, or used to, studied fashion. So prop building, painting, paper sculpting, photography, filmmaking, art directing. So she's a real polymath, does all sorts of stuff. Best known for a beautiful and magical set designs in Tim Walker's photographs. So Tim Walker, one of the most well-known fashion photographers of the last 20, 30 years and successful. Okay, classic Tim Walker image, this. Tall, big people, animals, all sorts of props, crazy costumes. Yeah. So here she said, I made these silly things and these prop big hats. I remember they weren't really working very well in the pictures. And then all of a sudden, Reversi decided to light it by torchlight. So the lights were off, and coloured the girl with the torches. Yeah, so, you know, just playing with props and messing around with things, okay, is important for her. She says it's vital to be taking a risk, okay. Could be doing a set with gorgeous flowers and fashion. You might use a bin bag and think, oh, that looks amazing. Suddenly you're using loads of bin bags. You have to try and keep open to life references, anything, stuff, mistakes. I'm always excited by mistakes. They're the best thing. So this is one of her set designs for the Tim Walker exhibition. It was at the V&A 5 years ago. Don't know if anyone saw it. So yeah, if we look at her research, contextual research, as a child, Shona Heath was fascinated by the drawings of Kit Williams. She says if you look closely, you can keep going. You see a stag beetle, little boots on, buckles and nails sticking out of one, wearing a little handkerchief, spots on, looks like snakes. So these are really rich. This is rich territory to sort of explore and investigate. Yeah. Surrealism, though, is her main research area. And she says, when I first saw Dali's work, I remember the feeling, my eyes being opened, almost like a physical feeling. My appreciation of his work has not dwindled. Every time I look, I see something I've never seen before. Okay, it's about looking, unpicking, looking at detail. And from Dali, I know she progressed to the love of the feminine softness of twisting bodies of Dorothea Tanning, Max Ernst, unconventional use of colour, and the desolate landscapes of Yves Tanguy. So here's Dorothea Tanning, one of, and you can see a Tim Walker photograph here, can't you? Just there, you know, set with the hair and the costumes and the you know, Alice in Wonderlandy type vibe. Yeah, great stuff. And here's the an Yves Tanguy painting from 1941. So yeah, surrealism, Shona Heath. So that's her big area of research. And to be fair, she's so established now in her practice that that's kind of what she does. But we really are talking about surrealism. We're talking about 100 years ago, a lot of it. You know, your Dalis, your Tanguys, your Ernsts, your Dorothea Tannings, etc. Were all, you know, early to mid 20th century. But still looks fresh with her, still looks exciting. But yeah, very, very focused in her research. Okay, let's look at Cara Walker then. So she's a fine artist, who's contemporary fine artist. There's a lot of big exhibitions at the moment, last 5 years. And yeah, we could look at her research and say it's cultural, in terms of the context of the research, cultural, political, social, historical. Here she is. This is the famous piece called Fons Americanos from 2019. It was at Tate, in the Turbine Hall at Tate. Some of you might have seen it. It's massive, great white sculpture. Huge, with all these figures on, again, allegories and stories. So here's the piece on the right in the Tate. Inspired by the Victoria Memorial, here we are in front of Buckingham Palace. The memorial was designed in 1901 and unveiled in 1911 to honour the achievements of Queen Victoria. So her response here is a contemporary sort of political response, really, to this Victoria Memorial, which represents all sorts of things, not very great things about our culture here in Britain. Okay, so that's her starting point. So she would have looked at that, wouldn't she, and found that and thought, I'm just got to research. So she would have to research that, read about it, look at what people have written about it, see how it was made, what all the individual things mean on it. So this is proper research into a thing in order to stimulate her piece. Okay. So rather than a celebration of the British Empire, Walker's fountain inverts the usual function of a memorial and questions narratives of power. She uses water as a key theme, referring to the slave trade and the ambitions, fates, and tragedies of people from these three continents. So, yeah, water, traveling across continents, you know, slave traders, colonial travelers, raiders. You know, the water's a key thing, and we've got that now, obviously, with migrants and the difficulties with the boats. So there's a kind of like there's also this contemporary link as well, I feel, with this work. And when you walked around the fountain she made, this huge sculptural memorial, you can see figures such as Venus, the captain, and Queen Vicky. Okay, these figures all symbolize different ideas around the transatlantic slave trade. They also reference an array of art historical, literary, and cultural sources. So each of these figures references imagery around the themes of violence and identity that Walker wishes to evoke or challenge. So there's an awful lot of research gone into this in order to come up with each individual figure to get the whole kind of message across. So if we look at the research context for Cara Walker, slavery, racism is an image showing that from back in the day. So she would have explored all of this through archives, through books, through libraries, in order to help her come up with her ideas for her piece. History, mythologies, yeah. So here we got classic sort of colonial sort of I don't know what the word is, colonialists in stepping into different cultures and taking good stuff from them and not rewarding them, you know, taking over land. Popular culture. So on her piece, we get Kay West there. There's Kanye. So she's bringing in. It's not just about historical. It's about, obviously, clearly black figures here have been incredibly iconic and important. So she's mixing that in as well. So contemporary research would have been part of what she was up to. And the World's Fair exhibition, that's quite an interesting one. So I know she went back and thought this was interesting because this showed a lot of the kind of trophies, oh, it's a horrible word to use, but all the stuff that was brought back from the West Indies and Africa, from colonial pursuits, really. All stuff from different cultures put in this exhibition. So, and she was doing an exhibition with a similar kind of piece. So yeah, that's an interesting piece of research. Clearly water, she would have looked at all the political, cultural events that have been shaped by water. Poetry and writing, clearly we know that this is a huge, you know, if you're dealing with anything like slavery or history of the Americas, anything like that, there are so many key books and key texts that one would have to read, novels and historical accounts, etc. Location photography. So she did say with this piece that actually she first saw it when she was in a taxi, sort of traveling around London, and she looked out the window and saw this memorial and took a quick snap with her phone. I think this is it, actually. And that kind of started. So research clearly can be about, I think research can be about looking, you know, looking and seeing something interesting. It's being aware, isn't it? Visually sort of aware of what's going on around you. So you might just be walking, you might have a walk you do every day to work or to college or whatever, and you might sort of just like notice things, think, oh, that's worth following up. So that's kind of the start of research, isn't it? I think that was the case with her. Clara's put in the chat, that's cool. I thought it might have been inspired by Italian fountains. Yeah, it does have that. It does have that feel, doesn't it? I think it just has the classic fountain which comes across in various cultures around the world. But I know what you're saying with the Italian ones, yeah. So yeah, location photography, clearly using the map in the archive. So she would have, yeah, gone into archives, looked at maps, looking at the journeys made across the Atlantic. Drawing is a research strategy. So clearly just making drawings, sketches, not an obvious thing for people to say that is research, but yes, it definitely is this kind of like materials research, and it's kind of like, yeah, primary drawing as research. And then making maquettes and clay models, that's kind of like researching processes. So you're trying to work out what process is best for you to make this. So you're researching materials. That's a form of research. And then digital explorations as well. So making, using new processes, again, exploring techniques, exploring media. That's you're researching, finding out how to use something. That's all good research, yeah. And then exploring the installation exhibition space. So, you know, would have obviously where the work's going to go, research that, what's been there before, what size is it, explore that, and then work out how her piece is going to go in there. And we can see that research is wide ranging and lateral. It's not just very, I mean, it is kind of slavery and colonialism as a big one, but it's quite prepared to just, okay, what about water? You know, that's a bigger thing. You know, how can that research into that kind of affect what I'm doing? Yeah, okay, so that's Carol Walker. So very different than Shona Heath. We've got surrealism, and we've got research into really big political, historical points. And the third one I'm going to show you is Neri Oxman, who's very important artist, designer, crops up a lot, and she generally scientific context, research into science and materiality, very technical quite often, not so much about politics or so much about materials. Well, it is about materials, but so much about politics or aesthetics, maybe not so much, but very much into science and materiality. So here she is, professor at the MIT. I don't know whether she's still there. Known for groundbreaking art and architecture to combine design, biology, computing, and materials engineering. Her work embodies environmental design and digital morphogenesis with shapes and properties that are determined by their context. She coined the phrase material ecology to define her work, placing materials in context. So she's like a bit of a guru for architects and designers, really. You know, what's she doing now? What materials is she using? How is she using them? Where is she putting them? What is she making with them? Many of Oxman's projects use 3D printing and fabrication techniques. They include the silk pavilion. So this was spun by silkworms, released onto a nylon frame. So it's very clever. It started off as just this nylon frame. The silkworms got to work and they made it into this beautiful sort of like, yeah, enclosure, which had elements of the man-made and the worm, you know, nature-made. So it's a lovely, and obviously the amount of research I would have to go into working out how this could work, was pretty big. This is the Ocean Pavilion from 2014, a water-based fabrication platform where structures were built out of chitosan, a water-soluble organic fibre similar to chitin. Structural pillars and long, delicate leaves were made by varying how the fibres were deposited. So yeah, we can see this is very technical and scientific, isn't it? Working out how materials work together, fibres, the structure, how they can work together, how you can get strength from them, but also, you know, very lovely kind of aesthetic pieces. So here's the result from that combination of hard and soft structures, changing from solid to willowy over the length of a branch or leaf, but all made from the same base material. So by combining them, she's got all these varieties of of outcomes. So this is Björk, famous Icelandic musician, artist, wearing one of Oxman's 3D printed masks based on a musculoskeletal system. So Björk says, Oxman is a true pioneer in capturing the biological with 3D printing in such a refined and profound way. Been a real joy to get to know her. So this is a pretty interesting mask that Björk's wearing here, isn't it? It's kind of like animal, but it's also kind of very sort of looks very sort of futuristic and synthetic. Yeah, in 2015, she made an important, influential TED talk on designing at the intersection of technology and biology. I think, obviously, putting her up here as someone, if design is your thing, I don't know what your particular, if you have specialisms at the moment, if you're, looking at, I work in media, film, or I work in, fine art, or I'm an illustrator, or I'm a designer. If you're a designer, then someone like Oxman is just incredibly important to follow somewhere. Because she's one of those people who's always just slightly ahead of the game and doing new and interesting things and collaborating. So yeah, I'm putting her in there for that. So yeah, 3 examples there then. One goes back to art history of surrealism, the other one very much in a political, historical, and then one in the scientific context, all in different contexts, but with just unpicking some of the research strategies they have within those contexts. Okay, let's look at some types of research then. So we tend to split it up into primary and secondary. Okay, that's an easy way of doing it. It's not that simple, to be fair, but we can do that. So a primary source provides direct or first-hand evidence about an event, object, person, or other relevant activity. Primary sources provide the original materials on which other research is based and enable students and other research to get as close as possible to what actually is, okay? Often primary sources reflect the individual viewpoint of a participant or observer. Primary research is often the main factor in helping outcomes achieve some sort of originality. So with the Kara Walker monument fountain statue, classic primary research was the photograph she took of the Albert Memorial, okay, when she was passing in the taxi. So that is it's a primary image, which she took, nobody else, which she used as a starting point, okay? It's not a secondary, it's not someone else's photograph that she's seen, it's her own. So it had more of an impact on it. Yeah, we'll look at some types. So here the forms of primary research look. So going on location, primary drawing or photography, like I just said, Kara Walker's. If you do a questionnaire, put it out there. Surveys, you write to someone or have email contact. You record an interview with somebody. Visiting a gallery or a museum is seen as primary research, okay? First-hand viewing of an artwork. So if you look at, I don't know, Picasso's Guernica in a book, that's secondary research, okay? Because you're seeing someone else's photograph of it and reading about it. Someone else has written it. If you go and see Guernica yourself in the gallery, that's primary research. You're seeing it in the flesh, you're making a response to that, yeah? So there's a difference. Diaries, personal letters, that sort of thing. Watching a film as it is intended. Again, I think, a feature film, you go and watch it in the cinema. Okay, that's primary research. You're seeing this thing, you're seeing the artifact. I don't feel watching it on a phone is primary research myself. That's like not the place it's meant to be. It's kind of passed down one, yeah. Recorded conversations, testing materials like we saw again Kara Walker do with the clay and stuff like that, all the time. Yeah, some people are doing that. So testing, playing with media, original thinking. These are all types of primary research. They're original. They're not someone else's. They're gonna bring up a new view of something. Even if it's just a photograph of, the pyramids or something. If you take the photograph of the pyramid, take it home and look at it, that's a primary piece of research. You're not using someone else's, yeah? So secondary research, secondary sources describe, discuss, interpret, comment upon, analyze, evaluate, summarize, and process primary sources. Okay, a secondary source is generally one or more steps removed from the event or time period and are written or produced after the fact with the benefit of hindsight. Secondary sources often lack the freshness and immediacy of the original material. Now, most of us use secondary sources all the time. So looking at stuff on the internet, looking at stuff on blogs, looking at stuff on Instagram, looking at, you know, that's secondary. You're looking at what someone else has done and responding to it. Okay. Whereas going to do it yourself and recording it yourself, that's primary research. So this is secondary research. Reading a book, reading articles, websites, social media, blogs, watching TV programs, watching online lectures, newspaper articles, using materials, following instructions. So if you follow an instruction saying, you know, on Photoshop, this is how you use, I don't know, blur filters, and you just follow it through, that's kind of like just doing what someone else tells you, really, or just responding to someone else's stuff. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Anyone want to make any comments in the chat about the difference between primary and secondary? And okay, right. Right. So there's also, yeah, we could say, you know, there's kind of like theoretical research or more academic research, which I guess the last two ones are a bit, but we've got practical. We must say that research can be practical. And Oxman, a lot of her work is practical, so it will be exploring in the lab, I suppose, in the scientific lab. Can be primary or secondary, so you can follow a list, you can just play and just explore and research materials, or you can follow a list of something to do. So material investment, practical experimentations, color experiments, yeah. Exploring drawing processes. I mean, doing a drawing, you know, in response to something is generally seen as primary research because it's your own interpretive drawing of something. Yeah. And again, in terms of assessment and academic art and design courses, where's your primary research? You know, okay, you've got all this stuff printed off from the internet. What primary research have you done? How have you done something, made some original research? Okay. Yeah, so using a new camera or process, that's all researching new learning software is practical research, kind of more secondary. Adapting software, now that's very much primary, isn't it? Primary play research. Using technical approaches, following instructions, yeah, sort of primary. Secondary, probably research. But yeah, we mustn't just think research is always looking on the internet for information about something, yeah, or looking on the internet for this artist's history or designer's history. That's fairly standard secondary research. Okay, we can research materials. So lateral research. So this is a term to describe research that's not obviously within the discipline. We've talked about this already. Research often stumbled upon by chance. In practice, most art design media projects have some sort of lateral research. It is rare for research in the creative field to be too one-dimensional because it's creative, it's playful. So you expect to go off and find some other stuff almost by accident. It's important to identify lack of this type. It is expected. I think it's rare for good research that leads to good places to be really one-dimensional and along one narrow path. Okay. So lateral research would be a filmmaker researching fashion for a central character's clothing. Yeah. An architect researching theories of human interaction, a fashion project that uses research into an architect, a fine art project that uses the ideas of a philosopher. Again, that's research into a context outside of fine art, isn't it? A photographer researching physiology of the brain within a self-portrait project. This is all lateral, just slightly off the subject, yeah? Coming across somebody to collaborate with through primary research. So you might interview someone who suggests a collaborator. So that's just taking you to a different place than one would expect. Okay, so trusted sources. Just want to finish off with a little bit about this. One of the main problems with internet-based secondary research is the difficulty in establishing reliable, trusted sources. It's getting worse. It's always been pretty bad, but it's worse and worse. So basically, if you stick in, you know, if you stick in, I don't know, surrealism, surrealist art into a Instagram or whatever, into a search engine, you get a load of rubbish come up, which is like not very interesting or useful or important. Okay, and you've got to wade through it all to find something useful. So we generally talk a lot about using trusted sources to limit all this down, to get rid of it. Yeah. These are sources, I'm on point 2, which have academic strength and are generally viewed as reliable in the information they give. There are many out there, and researchers generally build up their own collection of where to go for trusted information. Often, they're attached to museums, galleries, universities, and institutions. Yeah. So the Design Council, Tate, Victoria and Albert, these were trusted sources. They're not going to have any rubbish on there. It's going to be carefully, British Museum, these kind of places. It's going to have trusted stuff rather than anyone can do a blog or a website and stick it up there and come up in a search engine. It might be a load of rubbish. So this idea of trusted sources becomes more and more important. Yeah. So here's some examples. So this is Nowness I use quite a lot to kind of keep up to date with some stuff that's going on. A movement for creative excellence in storytelling, collaborating the extraordinary of the everyday. Go-to source of inspiration and influence across art, design, fashion, beauty, music, food, and travel. Yeah, so there's some great videos, some sort of unusual stuff on there, a lot of fashion. So this is an example of a trusted source that I rely on and use. Okay, Creative Review, bringing the creative community together since 1980, first as a print magazine and now across more platforms than ever. It delivers the sharpest opinion, analysis, and advice on life in the creative industries, particularly in the design sector. So if you're a designer, you're kind of like, let's look at Creative Review every month. It's such a good starting point for keeping you up, rather than just doing some random searches. Yeah. Fine art, of course, the Tate is a major fine art institution. Very highly thought of all around the world. So why not just go there first? Range of branches, YouTube channel, lots of great interviews with artists, podcasts, exhibition walkthroughs, collection details, and artist profiles. So, it's going to be reliable. For fashion, ID magazine built its reputation on being a consistent source of inspiration in fashion culture. Began as a fanzine in 1918, quickly earned its position at the vanguard of fashion and style. So if you ask fashion students, they'll say, "Oh yeah, look at Vogue, ID." They usually have a little list of the best places to go for them that they can rely on, trust. Graphics, logo design, love. God, I hope it's still going. I haven't looked at it for a year or so. Website and book devoted to logos and visual. Launched in 2008, the site shares good ideas and identity-related features. Hugely popular and informative in a very relaxed way. Yeah, so these places build up a reputation, for being, trustworthy. 1,000 Words is great for photography, online contemporary photography magazine, commissions and published exhibition and photo reviews, essays and interviews in response to our visual culture. Yeah, Tim Clark founded it in 2008. And it's really great writing and some of the contemporary stuff that's going on. And you can rely on it. And it's nice that it believes that creative inspiration for everyone, champions the most exciting and engaging work. It is quite general, actually. It's nice that. But illustration students like it, I know. Again, as a go-to place. Architecture, design boom, bring together professionals and young creatives from a diverse range of. I'm just putting these up as a few examples, so you get the drift. I mean, you'll kind of have your own, I'm sure. Okay, so that's kind of it for today. But we'll have a little chat about it at the moment. So, can you? So before the next lecture, which I think is in 3 weeks, there's 2 that kind of go together, and we're looking at key works and practitioners from the history of art and design. It's my choice, stuff I've put together, but we're looking from the beginning of time to, I think, 2000, and then 2000 to 2025. So a lot of the key works that keep cropping up and are seen as very influential, or ones we should all know about, really, whatever discipline we're involved in. So I quite like those 2 lectures. They're great. Good fun. But for the moment, though, can any of you suggest any trusted sources that might be useful for others to know about? I mean, Do any of you have any places you go to for your research or to look at art, design, or media in your particular disciplines? If you've got anywhere, maybe put it in the chat and we'll see. I mean, I think, yeah, the reason I'm saying it's becoming more and more important is because of, you know, AI and stuff. AI research is if you put that into the chat bots, it does come up with, yeah, it is feeding more and more from a vast amount of information. So to find some go-to places, anyone got any that they go to? Any useful, trusted sources? Gabriella, not really any that haven't already been mentioned. Okay, so yeah, so they are some of the key ones, aren't they? Good. Okay. Yeah, that's good, isn't it? Always try and find the artist's website, or for fashion, there's Fashion Research Network. That's very good. Well done, Clara. Yeah, that is a good one. So yeah, these networks that have grown up, they're really good, aren't they? Yeah, but that's right. So if you're, that's a really good tip, isn't it, for research? So if you're researching an artist, designer, or whatever, it's more like primary research if you go to their website, isn't it? Because that they've put that up, you know, and they're trying to, you know, they're going to police that, and it's going to be trustworthy. Whereas if you go to a secondary person's interpretation of their work and stuff, it's not. Yeah. It's not as reliable, is it? Florrie, what does question 2 mean? Okay, question 2. Yes, so that's so for the next one. Lecture 2 introduces key works and practitioners from the history of art and design. So have a think, what one work would you include in such a lecture? So I might ask this again at the beginning of lecture 2, but has anyone got, what sort of thing do you think is going to be in the lecture? Has anyone got any examples of a key work from the history of art, design and media, or from anywhere that will be in that lecture? Can you predict anything that's going in it, either of them? Oh, Jarad said, I find Discord helpful. If I find an artist I like within the fields I work in, it's a great place to source inspiration. Oh, I've not heard of that one. I'll have a look at that. That sounds interesting. I'm going to make a note of that one, and Jarad. Discord. Okay, what about anyone got any key works or practitioners that they expect to see in the next 2 lectures, either from art history or contemporary? I'm not going to tell you whether they're in there or not. Yeah, maybe. Gabriella said Da Vinci and Van Gogh might be in there. Never know. Yeah, of course they are. Obviously, they'd be in there. Yeah, maybe. Okay, yeah, very good. Yeah, you're getting the hang of it. Yeah, the cave paintings from Lasso might be in there. Mona Lisa, Da Vinci, certainly going to have something from Da Vinci in there. Yeah, good. It's all old stuff, though, isn't it? What? What about from the second lecture, the 2000 to 2024? Who would you expect to see in that? Keith Haring, yeah, maybe, might be in there. It's obviously important for you, Beatrix, but yeah, very important. Keith Haring, great. So you get the hang of it. So this is what we're going to be going through. Lots and lots of artists who are pivotal, you know. Eamon Hurst, yeah. Koons, of course, yeah, one of my favourites. So obviously Jeff Koons would have to be in there. Hey, you're good. Well done, you guys. So you're on the got the idea. Great. So I'll see you in a few weeks' time then. Keep an eye on the date, and yeah, I've really enjoyed this. It's been great. I think your interactions in the chat have been terrific. So great. So yeah, have a think about what we've talked about, and see if it can help you with your ongoing practice and course. So thanks very much. Lots of food for thought. Yeah, lots of stuff in there. You can always watch it again, or you can look at the PDF. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good few weeks, and see you soon.